You're listening to the 12 Days of Crusademas 2023, brought to you by the Longbox Crusade.
Seven ROMs a romming.
Hello and welcome to the 7th day of the 12 Days of Crusademas for 2023, brought to you by the Longbox Crusade. The 12 Days of Crusademas is our gift to the podcast community to celebrate the holiday season. And we're celebrating this joyous season by sharing with you some comic book titles that may have gotten by you in the past. Each of the 12 Days of Crusademas will bring you a hidden gem of a comic book series brought to you either by one of our holly jolly co-hosts or one of our podcast celebrity guests, till we get all the way to December 25th, Christmas Day. I'm your host for the 7th day of Crusademas, Jared Albrecht, a.k.a. the Christmas Probe. And of course, I have a Christmas joke that I brought for everybody. Since Delvin loves my jokes the most, I'll address Delvin. Delvin, what do snowmen call their offspring?
I don't know, Jared. What do snowmen call their offspring?
Same as us, children.
Whew.
Children.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas. God bless us, everyone.
Definitely left me cold.
All right. Here are the three silk top hat wearing that they found on the ground co-hosts podcasting with me. Usually, most of the time, we call ourselves the Core 4, the LBC crew. We will start by introducing, you know what? I'm just going to do it as people appear on my screen. So this time we're going to start with Delvin, the Christmas Web. Welcome to day 7 of Crusademas, Delvin.
Thank you for having me, Jared. Merry Christmas to you also. And I'm just going to say, I think you guys know me as a pretty reasonable human being and everything, pretty level-headed. And I'm just going to say we only have a few days left, and I haven't seen nor heard from Mary Jane, and it's starting to kind of cheese me off just a little bit. Is it really Crusademas without at least one appearance from Mary Jane?
He's trying to rev me up.
I don't know, man. Maybe she's saving it for Christmas Day, or maybe we'll all be on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries soon, Delvin. It's hard to say which one's which.
Okay. I'm just saying, we got a few days left, and it's Christmas, and I don't want my anger to growing like this. I almost like it, Jared. So,
Well, with that, I will pass it to my brother from my actual mother. It is Jason, the Christmas Weasel Albrecht. Welcome back, Jason.
Thank you, Jared. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas all. It's been a great Christmas season. I decided to throw my hat in the ring with this joke competition thing. So I've got a joke tonight.
Here we go.
Here it is. How is Christmas like your job?
I only know this one because I was looking up Christmas jokes before the show. So we'll see if Pat knows this one.
How is Christmas like your job? I don't know. It blows. Snow blows. Snow blows. Snow blows.
Jason, that's kind of better than what you've got coming.
That's the Mary Jane version of the joke, I think. No. My answer is you do all the work and some fat guy in a suit gets all the credit.
Okay.
Jason Albrecht, Christmas Weasel, ladies and gentlemen.
It snow blows.
More of that if Mary Jane doesn't show up.
All of a sudden, we're going to get letters asking for Mary Jane. All right, I think we got to take it to the founder of the network, the creator of Crusademas, Pat Sampson, DJ Christados Kringle. Welcome back, Pat.
Oh, thank you. Merry Christmas, Jared. Merry Christmas to everybody. I did have Mary Jane running to the store since I had my silk top hat. Mary Jane was running to the pipe store for me. So maybe she'll come back. We'll see. But I want to throw my hat in this joke ring too. And so since I know Jason likes my jokes, I'm going to do this one to Jason. Since it is, the 7th day, 7 swans a swimming. Jason, why did the swan join a swim team?
I don't know, Pat. I give up.
to improve his strokes. Yep. I'm a winner
So
again.
I'm declaring myself the winner because I have not entered this competition. I win by default. The two
Yes,
greatest
Melvin.
words in the English
Yes.
language.
You know, I don't think I've ever done this to the program before, but listeners out there, you might want to switch to the Fire and Water podcast network. Oh my goodness. Well, that was just terrible.
You guys are getting. I'm going back.
said
Children
snow
seems
blower.
really good at this point. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, remember how I mentioned we had podcast celebrity guests? Well, joining us around the fireplace is the keeper of all ROM knowledge and the host of Fave 5 from Fans podcast, which I will say right. I think he gave me a thumbs up. I think I finally said it right. It is our good friend that we got to meet in person last week, which was somehow in June, even though it's December. Don't ask questions. It's Jamie Ray. Welcome to the show, Jamie.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I'm really happy to be here with you. Ho, 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 hoes.
Okay.
Does that count?
Sure. We'll take it.
I'm so excited to be sitting here. And again, just got to meet you guys 5 to 6 months ago or this past weekend. Either one, whichever it's going to be. Thanks so much for having me on the show. I do have to start off by saying I'm one of the purveyors of knowledge. My buddy Lee Seats is another one. Sites, I don't know. I never know how to pronounce it. And he has helped me over the years learn all of this useless information that I have stored in this bald head.
Sounds like a good dude. He's never paid me to draw a ROM for him, so he can suck it. But, you know, you're awesome, Jamie Ray.
That's right.
I'm just, if you're listening out there, Lee, I'm just kidding. It was a joke to make Jamie laugh. I'm sure you're great. I wonder if I met him. Have I ever met him? Have you guys hung out? Were you at Life
Yeah,
Lafayette together?
we've actually, unlike the 4 ROM pals I got to meet this weekend, I've never met Lee. And he actually lives just like in Alabama. So there's soon we're going to have a meeting.
Oh, he's in my neighborhood then. That's where I live. All right. I think the big question on everyone's mind, with the exception of what does Santa say when he's walking backwards, which is, oh, oh, oh. Yeah, there's your bonus joke.
That was better. That was better. You're warming up.
We're on an incline.
Yep. Good one, Jarrett. Good one.
The numbers are coming in.
Yeah, but the bar's been pretty low so far, guys. So, I mean,
It's been on the ground. Anyways, we got to know. I see you got tucked up under your arm there. You got a stocking, and in that stocking, some sort of a gift wrap item. What you got going on there?
well, I have decided to bring unto you ROM the Space Knight specifically, and I'm going to catch a lot of grief for this from all the ROM pals out there, but I am bringing you issue 49. Most people will say it's not the typical ROM issue. I'm a big horror fan, and so this issue, when we talk about it, you'll see some of those elements in it, but it's also a pivotal issue in his life and in the story. That's what I'm all excited. It's got a cover by Al Milgram. Story, of course, is by Bill Mantlo, who is the creator of Rocket Raccoon. Pencils by Sal Buscema, inks by Ian Aiken and Brian Garvey, and edited by Ralph Not the Karate Kid Macchio, with Jim Shooter being the editor-in-chief. Some of the main reasons I love this book are, well, Rom is basically, he is just an old school good guy Boy Scout, a true knight in shining armor. He's been fighting the good fight for about 200 years at this point, and he's giving it his all every time. It's a classic story of a man going off to war, knowing he may never make it back. He answers the call no matter the cost. His actual very essence has been grafted into this Space Knight armor that he can use to fly through the vastness of space. His humanity is stored back on his home planet, Galador, which hopefully one day he'll be able to reclaim and live again as a man. Basically, what happened is Hasbro came to Marvel and said, hey, we have this toy. His name is Rom, and he comes from this place. Make us a comic book for it. And they threw a lot of money at him. Bill Mantlo took the toy, came up with some creative selling points, and it lasted for 75 issues, 4 annuals, several guest appearances. It outlived the toy by years. The toy came out Christmas of 1979. As a matter of fact, it was on Time Magazine's cover as the Thinking Toys, along with Anybody old enough to remember the Wizard? He was right there. The typical series was like about a 2-issue arc where Rom is thought to be a bad robot. Heroes attack him. Next issue, they learn that Rom is really a good guy, and they help him to defeat his enemies, the Dire Wraiths. So, have you guys ever read any of the Rom Space Knight comics before? Pat, how about you?
Well, Jamie, I'm glad you asked. I have not read any ROM comics lately, or I don't think I have read any ROM comics. I do have a bunch of them that I acquired from a yard sale artist person. I haven't got to read them yet, so I was excited to finally find out what this ROM guy is all about.
Awesome. Can't wait to hear what you think about it. Delvin, my friend, what about you?
I've never read ROM before, but as we'll get into in the discussion, I have been in the orbit. I've been in the orbit of ROM, but somehow never landed on the planet.
And I've got to assume that the star of your orbit is Jared. But Jared, what's your love for ROM comics?
I have quite a bit of love for ROM comics, and it's pretty much your fault. I reached a point in my life where I was really interested, and I'm still in that point. I was really interested in going back and not forward. Like, I wanted to kind of stop my comic collecting, my active comic collecting, and just go backwards in time and start reading all the things that I'd missed. And kind of linking up with you on social media and seeing you at cons and stuff, you really ignited this. I was like, I've never read ROM before. So I was at Second and Charles, my local Second and Charles, and they had a buy 5, get 5 free. And they had a whole box of ROM with a huge run of it. And I think they were priced at, I want to say, like $4 each. So when you buy 5 and get 5, they're $2 each. And I bought a huge run to include this. I don't know if this is a Crusademas first or not. It might be for me too. I have read this issue. So this is an interesting one for me, but long-winded way of saying, yes, I'm familiar with ROM, and it is your fault.
Lastly, Jason, how about you, sir? You read any?
No, I've avoided the rom-coms, generally speaking, but hey, everybody. Oh, no.
Oh, Delvin.
It's me. Hey, did y'all miss me? I took a little vacation, but we got a problem here. It's almost Christmas time. I don't see a tree. I don't see decorations. Pat's not in a cast from falling off the roof this year. Stuff is not getting done. Do I need to take charge of this? Again?
Jamie, just hang on a second.
Again? Oh my goodness. All right. I see you boys are on your playtime. Jared, looking good over there, looking trim. Dark Web, you got a little too much salt in that pepper beard there a little bit. You probably need to dress that up. Pat.
Yes, Mary Jane. Did you get my pipe?
I'm going to get you some Just for Men, just for Christmas, for stocking stuff. You know, the carpet isn't matching the drapes, if you know what I'm saying.
Unfortunately, I do. All
right. So we got Jared, we got Delvin, we got Jason, we got Pat. Wait a minute. There's one more person in here. What's your name, sir?
Hey,
what's your name?
It's Jamie, but you can call me.
What was it before you changed it? All right. Peace out. We got work to do, boys. We got work to do.
Sorry about that, Jamie.
It's the Crusademas now. It's the Crusademas. I feel better.
Jamie, no, I have not read.
She was hot. I gotta say,
that Mary Jane's a looker. She is a looker.
She is a
hot mess. Hot mess, but we love her. But no, Jamie, I haven't read ROM before.
Wow. Okay. I don't know how I'm going to follow that up, but maybe I'll do it with a quick summary of issue 49. So basically, we've gotten the Dire Wraiths, which are sorcerous shape-shifting creatures from the Wraith world, which is in the Dark Nebula. And they have basically been getting their butts handed to them by ROM, the greatest of Space Knights. So they converge on the outskirts of Clarendon, West Virginia, which is ROM's adopted home, to have their revenge. As they sneak in at the cover of night, they begin to use their long drill-like tongues, sucking out the brains of their victims, allowing them to gain their memories, to take their shapes, and they begin replacing the townfolk. Eventually, they kill and replace Steve Jackson and Brandy Clark's parents. She was one of the first humans, the very first human to meet ROM in issue 1, and she has since become a Space Knight in issue 40. As the morning comes, Rom and Starshine, weary from their battles with both the science and the sorcery dire wraiths. Starshine is trying to bring Rom around, he's down, he's lost his love for what he's doing. She's very upbeat and she's in love. I mean, she gave up her humanity to be a Space Knight with him. Rom, I love you, even if you've ceased to love myself. Mary Jane probably should have done that line. They transport via Starshine's powers and are greeted by Brock Jones, aka the Torpedo. They head to Brandy's house, and Rom notices her parents are acting a little aloof. But before he can bring out one of his 3 accessories, his energy analyzer, Brandy stops him, telling him he needs to have faith. And Steve, who of course is already a bad guy, is stoking the fire. Later on, as Starshine explains her new powers to her quote-unquote parents and to others, her living light casts shadows, and Rom sees that they are in fact wraiths. Before he can act, they cast a spell and transport them dimensions away. Rom tries to comfort Brandy after explaining that her parents are not only replaced, but are in fact dead. She breaks down just as the shadowy figures begin closing in on them. Back in Clariton, the dire wraiths celebrate their victory and plot their imminent conquest of Earth. And then, like every good comic, it has an epilogue. Outside the town, a spacecraft lands and shadowy figures emerge. Hunters training their instruments on Clariton lock in the life force of their prey. That's right. Next month, don't miss the double size, double excitement. Don't miss the extraterrestrials. Spoiler alert, they're skulls.
They have that look about them.
That's what I was guessing.
So there's a long history where actually you will find out that the Skrulls created the dire wraiths many years ago as an experiment. And like I said earlier, there is a group that uses science and there's a group that use sorcery. So again, this is not one of the regular issues, but it changes a lot about ROM going forward from here. And again, it wipes out, so many characters that we've come to know. And it starts him on a path and Brandy on a path that eventually lead to a lot of heartache. What did you guys think of the issue? Let's start back with Pat.
I didn't know what to really expect in this ROM. I thought maybe he was just a robot. I didn't know he had like a human personal side to him. And so I found that very fascinating, along with that he had another partner now. So I think having this story kind of gave some good background about how they got here and what this town really meant to Rom and to Brandy, who's a fine girl, and what a fine girl she would be. Obviously, she was fine enough to become this, Rom's partner on this quest here. But
definitely.
The dire wraith, where else are they from? The name sounds so familiar, or I've seen them or heard them in other areas, or maybe I'm mixing
Bill specifically created them for this series. So again, later on, it goes into things where you find out when the Skrulls show up that they're basically trying to clean up the mess that they made. And so you may have seen them in an X-Men comic. Dire wraiths show up and they're in Forge's headquarters, and it's a time when Storm has lost her powers. And there's a famous scene where Rogue touches one of them and it kind of overwhelms her. Interestingly enough, Rogue and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants showed up in very early issues 17 and 18 maybe. And it's one of the first times where Rogue has pretty much deciding that she's not the villain and she wants to be a hero. And they help to free Rom from my favorite villain. His name's Hybrid, but that may be where you're thinking of. They've also shown up in New Warriors. And as a matter of fact, if we're ready, Delvin, what about you? What did you think?
Stories by Bill Mantlo, art by Sal Buscema, inks by Aiken and Garvey, letters Janice Chiang, colors Ben Sean, editor Ralph Macchio. This is almost Transformers. Almost. I don't know if you can spell ROM or Transformers without ROM or not, but there's probably, you can't, I don't know. I don't feel like doing the math there. This is not Action Film Face Off, but it's close. And I saw that, and that was interesting. And it draws an interesting parallel as well to the Transformers. Pat might want to listen up or maybe not want to listen up, but it looks like all S hits the fan in issue 50, much like Transformers does. And Transformers was scheduled to end at issue 75, but I guess the editors kind of gave it a little wink and a nod and pushed it out to issue 80. So it's just a few interesting parallels. But about the story itself, it's interesting.
Hang on, Delvin. Hang on. Transformers. That's what happens if you take ROM out of it. Transformers.
Thank you. Thank you for that value added.
Appreciate that.
Well, yeah.
Woo!
Woo! So it was an interesting story. I knew nothing about ROM. Literally nothing other than robot. I did not know there was a human inside the robot who basically took on the armor of the Space Knight that he can never take off to fight this never-ending war. So that was very, very interesting. And I didn't know that there's such a character as Starshine. Did not know that was a thing either. So that was interesting as well. And yeah, really dark story. You know, they came to the town of Clareton and basically took over the town in that deadly, disgusting, dire Wraith's way. And it was real dark, but it was interesting. It was, I didn't know that. And they kept ROM in the main Marvel universe too. That's unlike the Transformers. So very, very interesting. It was also interesting to see Torpedo, who I know as Turbo, and Jared was introduced to Turbo in issue 28 of New Warriors on our podcast Come Out to Play. So just a lot of worlds colliding. I was intrigued.
And we got to talk a little bit about the New Warriors because it's interesting that we find out later on that Turbo, Brock Johnson, who was, I think, the third Turbo at that point, he was like a con man and you know, he turned good. We find out at the end of New Warriors that that's actually a Dire Wraith battle suit. And they get a Dire Wraith in the New Warriors. I can't remember its name, but they put it on, and man, talk about some damage.
You're giving away so much to our young impressionable Jared, who has not read these comic books yet.
I did say spoiler alert at some point. This comic put out in 1979, but you know, that's my bad. I should be a little more transparent about it.
All's forgiven, Jamie. You're good.
Well, speaking of Jared, now that I've ruined it for you, what did you think of ROM?
Oh, I like this issue of ROM, and it'd been a while, maybe a couple years, maybe 2-3 years since I read it. Like I said, I was going through it, I was like, wait a minute, I had this one. I read this one. And again, that might be a Crusademas first for me that I actually read what the guest brought. But I definitely did have a couple of thoughts. One, I think it's fascinating. You brought it up, the history of it, that it was, you know, Hasbro saying, hey, you know, make this toy. And issue 1 came out in like 79, which means it predates G.I. Joe from the Hasbro toy to comic success that would later also bleed over into Transformers. So like Hasbro is like 3 for 3 now for really solid series. And while I'm talking about that, I also want to give a plug for another series that I read for another kind of forgotten 80s toy called Sectars, insect-based heroes. And Bill Mantlo wrote that too. And it's actually pretty good. I kind of like it. I mean, your mileage may vary. Remember how I said I've been going back to read the things I didn't read before? These toy books, Masters of the Universe, Sectars, G.I. Joe, ROM, Transformers. What's that other one? I brought one to Crusademas that I can't remember the name of, which actually was a comic and then a toy.
Crystar.
Thank you, Crystar.
Yeah, the Crystal Warrior.
Like, these are like, I'm like just amazed that they put the level of talent that they did on it. Because, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, Hasbro comes and goes, make comic, and they're like, yeah, you know, let's see if the janitor and the lunch lady can whip something out for you in the next couple of months, you know. But no, I mean, they took it seriously. And as we've read in this particular issue, and you said people raise eyebrows at you for this one, Jamie. I think this is a really cool issue to pick because it plays up the horror element. It's an absolute setup issue. And it really is a good snapshot of how seriously Mantlo took this. He's writing serious sci-fi here with heavy consequences and burdened characters. And I just think that's fascinating. Now, the one thing that I find amusingly fascinating is you've got these dire wraiths, you know, from 200 years ago. And I think they tried to take ROM's planet, and the ROM, you know, that race of people kicked their butts, and they like had to go find someplace else to take them. They're like Earth. And they went with Clareton, Virginia.
Yeah, boy.
It's like the
Y'all
small
welcome.
town. Everybody knows everybody. It's
You know
like
what I
such
like?
a
Virginia, West Virginia.
West Virginia. What an odd starting point. Man, they weren't like, we're going to Chicago or New York or Paris.
No,
they were
no,
like
no.
Clareton, West Virginia.
Almost
Well, they heard there was good barbecue.
Virginia.
I think they did it because it's just a breath of fresh air there.
Life is old there, older than the trees.
My goodness.
So, you make a very good point about Hasbro, but the interesting thing about ROM, not to, obviously I'm a little biased, is that like the G.I. Joe and the Transformers, they came to Marvel and said, here's all these characters, here's all of this story, background, all of this stuff. Make us a
Vehicles.
comic. Yeah. But with ROM, they basically said, look, here's the toy, and the toy sucks, and it has 3 things, and the toy breathes loud. It has a zapper sound. And they took this crappy toy and turned it into this. So many guest stars came over. One thing that a lot of people don't know is that the cover for ROM 1 was originally drawn by Sal, and they didn't like the perspective, and it was getting really close to getting published. So they grabbed this cub illustrator from the bullpen, some little guy named Frank Miller, and had him draw the cover. And that's the one that they went with. And he's uncredited in the comic and on several sites, but Jim Shooter himself has come up and said, yes, Frank did that. Before Daredevil, before Dark Knight, all of that stuff, Frank Miller was drawing ROM.
Very cool.
Okay. So last, I guess we've got Jason. What did you think about issue 49?
Well, like I said, I'd never read a ROM comic. I'm old enough to remember when the toy came out. My friend Greg Ringler had the toy. Like you said, I thought the toy kind of sucked. And then so when I saw the comic on the rack, I could only get like maybe 2 comics. So ROM didn't make the cut. So I wasn't sure what to expect. I know what I had in mind. I kind of figured big space battles, epic laser blasts and everything else. And what I got when I opened it up was a really compelling horror story that reminded me a lot of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment I opened that comic to that interior page, that 2-page spread of the dire race forming and about to move into that little town in West Virginia, keeping it Clareton clear.
That's funny, Jason.
Thank you. Good one, Jason. Good one. And I knew I was in for something different. The other thing that really struck out to me was the art. Man, Sal Buscema's interior art was great.
Incredible.
I mean, it was creepy. It really set the vibe. And Ron wasn't even making an appearance there for a while as these dire wraiths are just moving in and taking over bodies, which brings me to my final point, which really struck me was having never read these comics before, I was terribly interested in the complexity of the backstory of Brandy and Brandy's parents. And so I was struck as they were taken over by these dire wraiths. Having never met them or read anything about them, I could tell that they had a rich tapestry within the story. So it was totally unexpected what I got, but very welcome.
Well, good. I'm glad. Sal was very good. And there are several what you would call horror-centric issues throughout the run. One of the earliest being where they take on this haunted house that later on, it's like a living embodiment of a house, and Dr. Strange faces it in its own comic and stuff. They have this one. They have another one where they infect a whole lake where Alpha Flight comes, and they've turned all of the fish and all of these things into just monsters. And at the same time, he could draw some very amazing, very heroic, dramatic scenes as well. He did the vast majority. I want to say it was up until probably the late 50s, maybe the early 60s before it turned over. And oddly enough, Steve Ditko picked up the reins for a while. That made for some cool space battle scenes and some stuff like that. So those are a little bit later on in the series. And spoiler alert, ROM wasn't the first name. They originally, when they got the patent, they called it COBOL. Now it's time to rate your interest in the series using the official Crusademas candy cane scale. On a scale of 1 to 12 candy canes, 12 being extremely interested and 1 being not interested at all, which means you have very bad taste. How many candy canes would you rate your interest in pursuing more issues? Pat, let's start off with you.
Well, Jamie, I think you brought a decent comic. And when I mean decent, I mean you brought a good one for a first-time reader to read. It made me interested. I started to read it, and I'm like, wait, there's something different about this ROM guy. You know, it almost made my eyes light up. Probably red because I was so interested in it.
Are you sitting on a 9-volt battery?
Usually.
What I do personally in my life, Jamie, it doesn't really have to talk about it here on the podcast. But anyway, speaking about a 9-volt battery, I'm actually going to be at a 10 on this. I found it interesting. Again, a very good comic to bring to Crusademas. I'm going to find out which ones I have. And, you know, next Heroes Con, I'm going to be some bin doming for some ROMs.
Awesome. I'm glad. And Mr. Delvin, how would you rate it on a scale of 1 candy cane to 12 candy canes?
I obviously won because you said poor taste. I mean, look at my friends.
Once again,
all right, let's see. I got Jamie to laugh. Look at me. Big winner for Crusademas. All right, I'm at a 9. I feel like I have to like it. Even like, and that it's an honest 9. I meant it as a 9 and that I do like it. It touches too many other comic books that I adore. Like I podcast about Transformers and like 3/4 of this creative team has been on Transformers before. So, I mean, that's a plus. And then it touches on New Warriors as well. And as Jared's going to find out, like the Dire Wraiths play a enormous part in the latter New Warriors history. So like it made me smile to learn a little bit about ROM. I'm actually surprised ROM didn't appear more in the New Warriors because Lord, no, copyright stuff. That had to be the only reason.
That's the only way.
That it did. Yeah, because like, I mean, you may as well had it with everything that's going to be introduced into New Warriors. So yeah, I have been in the ROM solar system for quite some time. So like if Pat bought the books or if I saw the books, then like I would read them and give them to Pat, or I would read them from Pat when he bought them. So I'm interested in learning more about the ROMverse.
Welcome. Come to the flock. Jared, gosh, I don't know what you're going to say, but what do you give it on a scale of 1 to 12 candy canes?
Nobody knows what I'm going to say. I'm in a mystery, wrapped in a riddle, surrounded by an enigma. Well, the answer to
conundrum.
The answer to your candy cane question, and I will preface it by saying I think this is just a fantastic issue that you've brought with us. I love the fact that it is bridging. I see this mental bridge, like a literal bridge from my world of reading to Delvin's, because I'm very familiar with this and it's leading right to something he's very familiar, and they connect so strongly. And I think that's half the fun of comic books, when the little connection quick gets made. So I'm definitely feeling that. You know, if you'd asked me as a kid, like Jason saw it on the spinner rack, didn't have the money for it, ROM comics, I would have said, maybe 6 out of 12 candy canes. And then when I picked them up at the Second and Charles on that sale and I started reading them, I was like, these are pretty good. They can get a little wordy. Fair warning to everybody. Mantla's got a little Claremont in them. And I would say, okay, I'll probably bump all the way up to a 9. And then, so I was thinking 9 candy canes, but then you mentioned the Romnibus. And I'm like, given the fact that I'm so very, very seriously considering ordering that, I have to say that it's at least an 11. I'm going 11 out of 12 candy canes because I'm 99% sure I'm going to buy that Romnibus. And that tells me pretty much all I need to know. You know, to give it a 12 for me, as most of our listeners know, that means I'm going to run out. I'm going to find the issues. I'm going to buy them all. I'm going to have them hardbound by Tim Vincent and Omaha bound. That's a 12. This is really close to that. So I'm giving it 11. And I think Jason's the only one we need to hear about. I think he ate his box of candy canes already. His fingers are sticky. The wrapper is stuck to his shirt. Over to you, Jason.
Yeah, I got to get my scorecard out here.
Stuck to his fingers.
Let's see. Okay, here we go. Humor, 1. This was darker than I thought. Not a lot of humor in this. Heart, 3. Like I said, 1 issue, and I felt like I knew the folks in this town. Obviously, a rich backstory between Rom and Starshine. So 3 for me there. Spectacle, giving it a 2. I kind of wanted the laser guns, man. I'm pretty sure the toy came with the big gat. I wanted to see how Rom carried his 9, man. I wanted to gat, you know. Yeah, I want to see him blast some dire race. But other than that, the spectacle was really good. More horror than the sci-fi like we talked about, but very, very good. And art, 3 all the way. Like I said, when I opened that very first page, I was like, holy cow. This is not what I expected, but I like it. So, doing the math, Laurel says that's 9. And because of your enthusiasm for ROM, wearing the ROM Space Knight t-shirt onto the podcast here, I'm going to give it another bonus 1 and lock it up with 10 candy canes.
Nice. 2 cool guys at 10.
Yeah. I love it. Wow. So I did good. You like me. You really, really like me.
Well, we like ROM.
ROM.
Yeah.
Now that I've gotten you all into the cult, the group, you can follow us on Twitter and tell us about what you read and what you like.
What's the best way to do that? Is it like hashtag ROM Pals, or do you look for a group? Like, how's
you
that
could
work?
do on Twitter, you can do @the Pals.
There you
and
go.
it'll take you right to it. You can also do a hashtag for ROM Pals, and you can find it there. And if you really love it, you can get on Facebook, and there's several groups there. Chris Rowell being one of the members, where he's always, sharing some great stuff. IDW took a run at ROM for a little while, but again, they had ROM and they didn't have all of the stuff that Marvel created. So it was a valiant attempt, and it's a fun read, but you don't get the whole history.
I see. Well, thanks for that, man. You've brought, again, I promised at the top of the show, a lot of ROM knowledge. And folks, that's going to wrap up day 7 of the 12 Days of Crusademas. We'd love to hear from you if you're familiar with any of the comics we cover here on the show, or maybe you give a recommendation a try. Maybe this makes you go pick up a ROM, and we want to know what you think about it. And there's a lot of different ways you can tell us how you think about it. The easiest ones are Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. All those are at Longbox Crusade. Or you can send an email, contact@longboxcrusade.com, and let us know your thoughts there. And of course, as always, we have our phone line. You can leave a voicemail at 707-532-5269. That's 707-532-LBOX.
Pick up the phone, baby.
Hot.
Jingle.
And if you are loving this whole Crusademas thing, didn't get a chance to listen last year, or you just want to hear more Crusademas, you scroll far enough back into our feed, you'll find all the episodes of Crusademas Past. We did it in 2022, 2021, 2020, 2019, 2018, and even the OG 2017, where we still laugh to this day about how particularly salty Jason was about the shield.
If it didn't suck, I wouldn't have given it a bad score.
Pick it up from there, Jamie.
Thanks for listening to the show, and have a ROM-tastic Christmas. Thanks for listening, everyone. Be sure to come back tomorrow to find out what the next gift is under the tree here in the festively decorated Longbox Crusade Studios. Thanks for having me, fellas. Until next time, DJ Christatos? I don't know how to say it. Pat, play me some Christmas jam.
Wiggity, 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 whack.
Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh. O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtail ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. A day or two ago, I thought I'd take a ride, and soon Miss Fanny Bright was seated by my side. The horse was lean and lame, misfortune seemed his lot. He got into a drifted bank, and then we got upset. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one
All songs, song clips, and characters discussed are copyright of their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended. We are just fans that like to share our love of comics.
Outtakes.
Have you guys ever read any comics before about ROM, the Space Knight?
Hey, let me give you another take. I started laughing when you asked us if we had read comics before. I'll shut up. Let you read that one more time. And then just go down the list there.
Okay. You're going to be last, Jared.
I'm
Pat.
third on the list. I'm third on the list.
Nope. I forgot to talk about my crocheted ROM.
It's got a crochet ROM.
It looked like it was pipe cleaners for a minute. I was like, can you make a ROM out of pipe?
He looks more buff than the toy.
It's like as big as the toy and it's made of crochet.
It's more articulate than the toy, too, it looks like.
Pat, if you ever needed an outtake, there you go.